What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by a very special guest. We have Thomas of Catch the Blitz on Instagram, 100,000 followers on Instagram. They put out the best and just the fastest news out there for the NFL. What's going on, Thomas? Introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are and what you're about, man.
What's going on, Mitch? Thanks for the intro. Thanks for hyping me up as well. I really appreciate that. Super stoked to be here today on the Bottom Line View. Yeah, like you said, Catch the Blitz on Instagram. Make sure to go ahead and follow that. We've just been swarmed with free agency content all week, as I'm sure you are. And I'm sure you're pretty happy about it based on the Pats jersey in the background, the Pats sweater on today. But thanks for having me and looking forward to getting into things today.
So in this video, we're actually doing two videos here, the BLV Catch the Blitz combination. We are doing the free agency winners and losers. So the top 5 winners and the top 5 losers. In this video, we are going to give you the 5 teams we felt maybe took the biggest step backwards. The 5 losers. They lost a lot of elements, a lot of players, and just aspects of their team that's not going to make them look as hot in 2021. And we're going to give you our opinion for the 5 teams that took that step back. So, Thomas, first describe kind of what you look for in a loser, and then give me your number 5.
First and foremost, I want to preface this by saying that I think teams are built through the draft. Free agency is important. Don't get me wrong, free agency is very important. But I think if you want to build a Super Bowl contender, the framework of your organization is going to come through the draft. Free agency is more to, I think, just bolster key areas of need. So when I think loser, first of all, if you're a team that simply puts in absolutely no effort to strengthen your squad or makes a few signings that raise eyebrows and are maybe going to take a step back in 2021, that's a loser for me. I'm also looking at teams that maybe I think should have been a little more aggressive, but weren't. And that actually leads me perfectly into my number 5 on my losers. And that's the Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that's been sitting on a ton of cap space for years now, and they have yet to make a splash. They went and got Carson Wentz, but I think Carson Wentz needs that marquee receiver, and they didn't make a move on anyone. Kenny Golladay, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, T.Y. Hilton's still out there. They could re-sign him. Justin Houston's still out there. They could re-sign him. They have a ton of money to work with, like I said. But I would have liked to see them be a little bit more aggressive and not wait sort of for the second wave of guys and go after the top dogs on the market to help Wentz. That roster that I think really is Super Bowl ready.
I agree totally. I look at losers the same sort of way, and I put them almost on a scale. So if you are a team like the Colts, who you invested in a quarterback, you traded a pick to get Carson Wentz, you want to win now, and then you, with the money, sit out of free agency, especially the first wave. We're nearing that first wave being over, even the second wave to a certain degree. And the Colts haven't even re-signed some of their key players as well, like you said, on defense with guys like Justin Houston. So the Colts are a fascinating team because it feels like they should have been there already. It feels like Ballard should have made that move already, where he's getting that number 1 receiver. He's getting that number 1 pass rusher off the edge or a cornerback. And it just feels like the Colts have been far too conservative. I understand being smart with your money, but at a certain point, you just got to go for it. So I like that number 5.
Yeah, Ballard's a great GM, and I love what he's done in the draft, but I think what a lot of people don't understand is that windows close very quickly in the NFL, and the Colts need to be a little bit quicker in truly going for it.
My number 5 is the Seattle Seahawks. So similar to you, the Seahawks are a team I look at and I say they need to win right now. Not only do I think they need to win right now, but their organization has suggested and told us outright that they believe they need to win right now. They traded picks for Jamal Adams to get him in their building to upgrade that defense. So you look at what happened. They didn't really have a lot of money. They lost their number 1 cornerback. They might lose their number 2 cornerback. They didn't upgrade the worst pass rush in the NFL. They released their best pass rusher, Carlos Dunlap, have not replaced him. Does not appear they're going to get back KJ Wright. Okay, so their defense which was already bad last year, made strides at the end of the year, but already bad last year, did not get better. They have not upgraded it at all, other than replacing Griffin with Witherspoon, which is probably a downgrade. Then you look at the offensive line sure got a little bit better. They added Gabe Jackson. That was a nice piece. They added Gerald Everett to tight end. Don't know how big of an addition that will be, but it's fine. Chris Carson, I felt they overpaid for. I thought they were going to let him go and go elsewhere and use that money for the defensive line. But I just look at all the weaknesses that the Seahawks have had over the past couple of seasons, protecting Russell Wilson, getting after the quarterback, and they have not done enough to make them a true Super Bowl team. Maybe they make the playoffs if they keep Russell Wilson, which it appears they will, but I just don't see them getting any better. I only see them getting worse. So for a team that wants to win a Super Bowl, that window is truly closed almost for the Seahawks, and they've done nothing with it.
Yeah, they essentially let some of their biggest pieces walk and kept a position at running back, Chris Carson, where I thought they had the guys in-house to replace him. They used a first-round pick on Rashad Penny a couple of years ago, and it's not that he hasn't even worked out. It's that he hasn't even had the chance, really. I know sometimes he had injury problems and whatnot, but that was a move that really had me thinking that I just truly don't know if the Seahawks know where they're at as a franchise. Russell Wilson, it's been a nightmare, and they've failed to go out and give him the best group of 50 plus guys to truly compete for a Lombardi trophy. My number 4, and this pretty much just boils down to one move. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Sure, they lost Matt Judon, but you know what? Their defense is very solid, and I think they still will be solid without him. But the failure to acquire a number 1 receiver for Lamar Jackson is really going to show down the stretch in 2021. Lamar's a great quarterback. He can win in the regular season. He is tremendously talented and an amazing athlete. But the fact that he doesn't have a number 1 guy to pick up tough first downs and to really be there for Lamar to lean on in close situations late where running the football is just not an option anymore, it's going to hurt the Ravens. This division is only getting tougher. You know, the Steelers are always a tough team to beat. The Browns are getting better. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I think, are knocking on the door too, or at least they will be soon. The Ravens have to be shaking their heads here. I thought they would have been all in on Kenny Golladay. Obviously, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I like the Ravens as a pick here too. I considered them for my list. The number 1 receiver thing is a big deal, but yes, they did lose Judon. They did lose Yannick Ngakoue, which they're 2 best pass rushers basically on paper there, and they did not replace them. I like Tyus Bowser, who they have, kind of underrated, but their pass rush and their receiving core, probably the 2 weakest aspects of their team, and they didn't really do anything to make it better. So that's interesting. We'll see if the Ravens can continue to be that playoff team. My number 4 team, I'm sticking in the AFC North, and you actually mentioned them, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers, I just smell regression with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2021. Big Ben is not what he used to be. And with that being said, you cannot continue to rely on him to be the team, to be the offense. And you look at the way the team is currently constituted. The offensive line lost major pieces, and a lot of the pieces that they have are old pieces too. So they're regressing. They're getting older. They lost guards. They lost tackles. They lost centers this offseason, retired or left. They didn't really help their running game, which was maybe the worst running game in the NFL last year. They could not run the ball on 3rd and 1 to save their lives. It was embarrassing. Then you look at the defense, and that was the strength of their team. They lost major pieces to that defense. They lost Mike Hilton, who's maybe one of the more underrated corners in the NFL at the nickel position. They are looking to trade Steven Nelson, so I'm basically considering that a loss. So 2 of their starting corners are gone. They lost Bud Dupree, who's one of the better complementary edge rushers in the league, you know, TJ Watt on the other side, and they've lost some depth as well up front. So I look at this team. I don't know what their identity is. I don't know why they re-signed Juju. Like, I have no idea. So I look at this team, like you said, AFC North's only getting better. I think the Steelers are the team that's taking that step back.
Yeah, like you said, offensive line is a complete disaster. I think it might be a revolving door next year. And Big Ben is pretty much a pylon in the pocket at this point where you really, really need to protect him because he's not avoiding any pressure. I
Yeah.
think running back they will address at the draft, whether that be Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, or maybe even Javonte Williams. But you have to come away at a free agency thinking we didn't improve this roster. We showed signs of regression last year. It's only going to get worse.
And here's the other thing with free agency, right? You just brought up the draft and basically getting a player at the draft that will help them fill a need. Well, what about using free agency to make it so that you don't need to pick a position in the draft? Those are typically the winners of free agency. And that's partly why the Steelers are a loser of free agency. So who's your number 3 team?
Number 3, and this is a team that has pretty much built a reputation on doing a lot of questionable moves in the past, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. The Rodney Hudson decision I really didn't understand. They parted ways with Gabe Jackson as well. Trent Brown, they traded back to your New England Patriots. The Kenyon Drake signing was just completely out of pocket. I don't understand it at all. I don't think I will understand it a year from now, 2 years from now. It's a lot of money when you already have Josh Jacobs, who I think he's proved he's an every down back. They didn't address their needs. The secondary is still a disaster. Their defense doesn't have a lot that is really anything to write home about. So I got the Raiders at number 3. They're a clear loser.
Spoiler alert, they're going to be on my list as well. They were big losers, man. I just don't know what the Raiders are doing. My number 3 team is the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, I don't really understand what they're trying to accomplish. Okay, so they got better on the front 7, and I understand that was like a huge weakness for them last year. They brought in Danico Autry, who is kind of an underrated player from Indianapolis, and they also brought in, of course, Bud Dupree. So those are nice moves. They re-signed Jayon Brown to a very affordable contract. I like that. But the secondary, I believe they released Kenny Vaccaro at strong safety, so that's a starter gone. They released Adoree Jackson. They released Malcolm Butler. They released four of their top 5, I don't know, secondary players other than Byard. So then they look to replace Adoree Jackson with Janoris Jenkins, basically paying him, I guess, equal money on the market, even though he's older and I don't know if he's as good, or at least he's more limited, in my opinion, in terms of what he can do. His skill set's more limited. So you got to, put a safety over top, that sort of thing. And then offensively, they lose 2 of their 3 biggest weapons outside of the running back position. So they have A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry still, but they lose Jonnu Smith to the Patriots. They lose Corey Davis to the Jets. Their offensive line is still not fantastic. And now you're just expecting Ryan Tannehill to carry this team in a way that he has never been asked to do, because I don't think the defense is going to be much better. And I see the offense only getting worse and having to rely on Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown even more, and not having those complementary pieces. So the Titans, as a team that's been to the playoffs consistently over the past couple of years, I see them taking a step back after this free agency.
That's a really interesting pick. I consider them from my list as well. They started off free agency signing, like you said, Danico Autry and Bud Dupree, and I thought these are great moves because they struggled at getting to the quarterback and they were abysmal on third down last year. And then everything else after that was a complete disaster. So they almost went from me considering them as winners because they were trying to fix what they struggle at. Now with the secondary, with the pieces they lost on offense, I agree. It's a good pick from you. Now, this team could go to number 1 if they do what they did last year in the draft. I think the Green Bay Packers lost this free agency. I personally would have prioritized Corey Linsley over Aaron Jones. You drafted A.J. Dillon for a reason last year. It's very frustrating if you're a Packers fan. It's very frustrating if you're Aaron Rodgers. You still don't have that marquee number 2 receiver. I thought Will Fuller to Green Bay was going to be the worst kept secret of free agency. He ends up in Miami. I was frustrated when they didn't do anything at the trade deadline. I'm even more frustrated when they didn't do anything in free agency because I watched the Packers a lot last season, and I think they're on the cusp of the Super Bowl. But I really think they would have benefited from one big slam dunk signing. And the loss of Corey Linsley is going to be felt for sure next season.
Yeah, here's the thing about the Packers, right? So, yes, they made the NFC Championship. Yes, they were the number 1 seed in the NFC. I saw them as a regression candidate last year. I think basically everybody did. But what happened was they had the number 1 player in the NFL, the MVP. They had the best center in the league. They had arguably the most productive receiver in the NFL. They had maybe the best cornerback in the NFL. So when you have all of those 4 things at the peak possible, just production wise, there's only down that you can go. And even LaFleur was one of the best play callers in the NFL. So for them to simply stay put is a loss. That is what Packers fans, I feel, don't understand a lot of the times, is you need to get better just marginally, even a little bit, like a number 2 receiver, a number 2 cornerback. Just fix the small things. But yet they haven't. They've only gotten worse. So I do like that Packers pick. I definitely considered them, but they are not on my list. The number 2 team on my free agency losers is the Chicago Bears. The Bears are losers because they promised Russell Wilson and they got Andy Dalton. But it's much more than that, okay? Similarly to the Packers within their own division, yes, you made the playoffs. I get it. You're fantastic. You made it. You were 8-8, I believe, okay? So most years you don't actually make it at 8-8. They then lose a lot of players through free agency. Roy Robertson Harris, they lose their number 1 corner in Fuller. They lose just players all over the place. The offensive line has massive holes. You could upgrade the receiving core. I don't even know if Allen Robinson wants to play there anymore. Andy Dalton? Like, seriously? Andy Dalton? You're going to give me Andy Dalton? I would have rather had Trubisky. I'm not even lying. I'm not even joking there. I would have rather had Trubisky. I just don't get it. I don't get the Chicago Bears. I think they're a disaster. They are a comedy special of an NFL team, man.
I'm with you on that one. I'd take Trubisky over Dalton. Not every day of the week, but I'd take him on most days. But spoiler alert, that is my number 1 loser, the Chicago Bears. I'm right there with you. I saw this team. I saw potential that they'd leave free agency as a Super Bowl contender. You keep Allen Robinson. You go after Russell Wilson. In the end, I think Kyle Fuller, first of all, might be the worst move single-handedly. You take a massive cap hit and release one of the top corners in the NFL. Like, what's the direction here with this franchise? Are they tanking? Are they hoping to compete in the NFC North? Because you franchise tag Allen Robinson, which makes me believe that they want to win, and then everything else after that as well. They're letting Akeem Hicks walk, who is one of their best pass rushers and run stuffers. They did a lot of things that just made me think, what's going on with this organization? I think it's going to be a really nice battle between the Lions and the Bears next season over who finishes in the basement of the NFC North.
I certainly agree with that last statement. My number 1 loser, I already alluded to it earlier. It is the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are the one team I look at and I say, what in the blue are you doing, man? Like, what is this? What is this process? So here's the thing with the Raiders. I thought their process to trade Khalil Mack, rebuild the roster in their image, get all these draft picks and just go ham, right, was the right thing to do. But they absolutely missed on every draft pick almost and every signing. And now it's just showing up huge for them. Like, sometimes process doesn't equal success. So LaMarcus Joyner, huge signing, they release him. Trent Brown, huge signing, they trade him. You know, it's like Corey Littleton hasn't really worked out yet. He's still on the team. Abram was a disaster last year as a first-round pick. They bring in Kenyon Drake to help out their first-round running back. They get rid of their strength of their team. This is what I don't understand. The Raiders were competitive last year because their offensive line is nasty. Like, they control the football, they run the ball, they pass it, they protect Derek Carr. It's not like they had amazing weapons, right? Darren Waller's great, Jacobs is decent, good, and then they have like decent receivers. But now that you lose your offensive line, you lose your identity. So you can't control the football. You can't take that time of possession. Now your terrible defense is only going to get worse because now they're on the field more and you have no secondary. You have a defensive line that sure you added Quentin Jefferson, Solomon Thomas, not bad bargain deals, but still no difference makers, which has been the problem with the Raiders defense. They don't have one superstar on any level. So the Raiders with John Gruden, Mike Mayock, I feel like John Gruden has too much power there and he's just he's going grocery shopping and he's picking all the treats. You know, he's not picking the fruits and the veggies, right? That's the thing with John Gruden. I just think they need to go back to the drawing board. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. I don't get it, man. I really don't.
The good news, though, is Gruden has what? Only 8 years left on his contract? 7?
Something like that. Those are the teams that are the biggest losers from the 2020 NFL free agency. Let us know in the comments who you guys believe are the biggest losers. Which team is the biggest loser? Also, make sure you do spike that like button and don't forget to subscribe to The Bottom Line View. And if you're watching this on Catch the Blitz, make sure that you do subscribe or follow. I'm not sure where you're putting this up, but thanks guys for watching. Any final words from you, man?
I think you should change Gronk spike that like button to maybe Mike Gesicki spike that like button. But other than that, it was a pleasure having me on here. And I'm always in the mood to talk about some of the worst teams in the NFL. So a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, man. And check us out on the next video in the series, which is the top 5 winners of free agency. A lot more positive. Peace, guys.